Well, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. For those who don't know me, my name is Ann Kelly, and I'm gallery manager here at Historic Santa Fe Foundation. The building that we're in is called El Zaguán, and it is a building that people have been making art in since the 40s. The building has a very, very rich history, and our history room over there will tell you a little bit more about it. But just wanted to put that out there about the art making, which is directly related to the gallery as well. So we're here with Rebecca, and Rebecca is a multimedia artist as well as an illustrator. Her beautiful pieces are gracing the walls, and this exhibit is on view through the 27th of the month. And I'm not gonna go too far into the background because we'll get to that in the conversation. In terms of the format that we have today, Rebecca is going to do a little brief intro. She and I will then have a conversation, and then we'll save a little room for a Q&A at the end. And I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca.
Thank you all for coming, for being here. I've been in Santa Fe for 30 years. I went to the College of Santa Fe, but I'm originally from Oklahoma. So a lot of my work speaks about my roots in Oklahoma. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, also of European ancestry. And I speak, a lot of my work talks about that and about Santa Fe in northern New Mexico and my love for northern New Mexico, and also went to the College of Santa Fe.
True story.
True story. And so this, let's see, I've been a working artist for, it's hard to say, I guess a good part of at least 16 years, but longer than that. I've been an artist my whole life. But I had kids, I was working for other people in the creative industry and in Santa Fe, and I got pregnant, and I was like still working creatively for other people, but was working on my stuff on the side. And I, at some point, was like everyone comes to this conclusion at some point, like I have to find a way to work for myself and make a living. And so, and especially with children, I wanted to raise my kids at home. I wanted to be home with my kids. And that's when I decided to start my business when I was, my first daughter came along. So that was 18 years ago. And my business is the Tree-of-Life-Studio. And I started out making note cards that some of you may have seen around town or bought, and then I could, because I felt like that's something I could handle as a new mom with babies at home. I have 3 daughters, and that grew into, and I went to the College of Santa Fe originally for photography, and then studied with David Scheinbaum, for those of you who know, and many other people from the old college, CSF. And then I just had this urge when I was in college, and as a freshman, I just saw the painters in the painting studio, and I was so like, oh, I just didn't, I knew that I needed to do something more like painting or drawing, and so I shifted over to the painting department and ultimately got a BFA in painting. And, anyway, so back to my business. I started out with note cards, and then because I took a break I consciously took a break from doing painting larger works, and when my kids were little, and then I grew into more, as my kids got older and I was able, I did more larger works and started getting back into more printmaking as my kid at some point. So I started integrating that more into my work, and then came along 3 years ago an opportunity to make a book. It was something I always wanted to do, to illustrate, and I had no experience illustrating. So I had the opportunity to illustrate this book by a very serendipitous meeting with the author. If you haven't heard it, I can tell you sometime. But it was one of those situations where the whole weekend I was in Oklahoma was pure magic. Everything just kind of like lined up, and I'm like, whoa, I couldn't have planned that if I wanted to, but between meeting her and then, just amazing. And then, so from that weekend, from that meeting with her, I came to illustrate this book. I kind of did like a little bit of an audition process with the publisher. She had already had a contract for this book, the author, And it's a Cherokee story, a modern contemporary story of siblings, it's universal, really. But it's particularly, the characters are Cherokee. And the author really wanted the characters in the book to be authentic to today and not romanticized in any way. And she's really working hard to kind of correct the narrative that we all know very well, like the stereotypical narrative of who people are. And so she really wanted the book to have, in Oklahoma also, Native people, it's a very different Native population, especially the Cherokees. Almost everyone from Oklahoma has some Native blood of some sort or some heritage and lineage. And so a lot of Cherokees are blonde hair, blue-eyed, because we're so mixed at this point. And a lot of African American, a lot of Cherokees had slaves, unfortunately, or mixed a lot with slaves. And so there's a lot of mixture. The culture is very, very different. Even when you go to the reservation, which is like the town I'm from, the city I'm from, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that's also considered the reservation now. It didn't used to be called that. It was called Indian Territory. There's a lot of names it's been called. But yeah, it's just completely different. And then when you actually go to the homeland, like the Cherokee place where we were moved to at Tahlequah, Oklahoma, I love going back there every year. That's where I met the author. That's where Cherokee National Holiday is. And I feel at home there because I see a lot of people like me and it's where I'm from. I'm from Oklahoma. I mean, you're from somewhere, and I love the people. And so that's where I came today to now. And now I'm on my second book with my sister. This was the original book that I had a dream of many years, 10, 15 years ago. I was like, I have to do this book about my great-great-aunt Ruth, who was an activist in the Native American community back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And she was one of the founding members of the NCAI. And so anyway, I'm in the depths of that second book with my sister is writing it, and Jen Lauren, and I am illustrating it, and it's going to be a nonfiction biography and for children, but it's longer, it's more educational. And then, so I somehow just got thrust into the world of illustration, and now I'm doing more of that than I am anything else.
Did you mention your Caldecott?
And then it won the Caldecott.
Because that's kind of a big deal.
Thank you. Yeah, it won the Caldecott, and I mean, that was a whole thing in and of itself. I guess because I wasn't first an illustrator and then working towards this career to be an illustrator and working towards the Caldecott. And I guess there are, obviously people who do that. I wasn't really watching all of the talk or the chatter about the Caldecott predictions. I a little bit went on a few times because someone brought it to my attention, and I went on and looked, and my book was mostly not on any of the lists for predictors, because this is a thing. A lot of people really get in that world, in the children's book world, get really into either the Caldecott or the Newbery or the all the things, and there's some people that get really excited about predicting who's going to win. And a lot of librarians and school librarians, it's really cute. But
well, how could you? There's no way you could have ever known that was going to happen. That was just that magic.
Yeah.
And probably backed up the fact that you are supposed to do that book that you had in mind before this book here happened.
It all just was, it just happened very serendipitously. But yeah, it was I think when you make something purely for the joy of it, obviously, right? If we make something purely for the joy of it, and because I poured my heart into it, I think it comes out. And I guess, it's an honest, it's honestly who I am. And I truly did about kill myself with that book, because I had to I'm a painter and a printmaker, and I'm not a digital artist. And I had to learn to work on Procreate, which is this program on an iPad, and I had to learn how to make my art work for a book format, which is very different than a painting on a wall. And I had to learn to work with an art director and my editor, and I was loosely, I wasn't working directly with the author because typically you're not very involved with the author, but so that was
I would imagine you have the author's story and then you're illustrating
her notes,
what that would look like to you, but in your own style.
Yes.
So that's, but yeah, I think that's like a big thing about art for sure, that if you were creating the work thinking my goal is to win an award, it's just a very different place of working from as as opposed to a place of love and passion and that's why you're doing it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and here we are today.
Yeah, and I'll add we have copies of the book for $20, and Rebecca will sign them for you if anybody wants to pick one of those up. So if we could take us back just a little bit to the College of Santa Fe, because that's a special place. We're both lucky to have attended there back in the day when it was an amazing school. And as you mentioned, we both were photography majors, or you showed up as a photography major, but then you got into printmaking and painting, and it was a result of really wanting to be more involved in handmade processes. Not that photography isn't, but you wanted to work with paint and ink, and can you expand a little bit more on that transition?
Yeah, I think I adore photography. I will always be a photographer in my heart, and I sometimes even regret leaving it behind because I had to choose. So this is in no way to criticize photography, but I had this feeling like that I was making like lost and found art, that photography was something that I had like found, an image that already existed that my eye found. And I think that's my only way of wording it. I don't think I thought that literally, but I just wanted my hand and something where I had to create it from myself completely and with the materials. So that's where that impulse came from. And there's something really seductive for certain people that are just painters at heart, about the painting studio and back then the smell of the oil paint and the teachers and the conversations I was like, oh gosh, I guess I have to go join them, because I can't stay away, and yeah, that's where that came from.
Well, and you describe yourself as a multimedia and artist now, and illustrator, but for example, the pieces in this show have elements of printmaking, gouache paint, which is part of the print. You've incorporated that in the printmaking process. After, yes. So these pieces have layer upon layer. And one thing we were talking about earlier with printmaking and photography, just this little segue, in a previous conversation we had talked about kind of that transition from photography to other mediums, and how, in a sense, printmaking has similarities to photography in the fact that most printmaking processes are by nature reproducible. You do have some pieces where you're carving a plate and printing from that, and there's multiples, but these monotypes are by nature yielding a unique piece. So it kind of is the complete opposite of all other printmaking techniques in that they are one-of-one pieces. So it's kind of interesting in that world.
Yes, yeah. For those of you who know about Monotype, it is, so the first layer on these paintings they're all monotypes. So the ghostly kind of leaf imprints that you see, those are monotype prints, and that's where I start, and that's what Anna's talking about. Some of you have probably done that, but there's a lot of ways to do a monotype print or a monoprint. You can paint on a plate, on an acrylic plate, or you can use things as a, what is the thing I'm trying to say? The relief or the imprint of the leaf. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. There's lots of ways of making monotypes, but when I first came to Santa Fe 30 years ago, do you guys remember Monofest at the Monothon? No, that's what it was called, Monothon. At Santa Fe, and people, it was like a big monotype printmaking festival, and that was where I was like, I saw it first, and these people were like painting these giant plates with, just by hand, and I was like, whoa, just on this fly, without like, to me, I'm not that quick of an artist. I'm not really, it's not something I've ever felt very talented at. But
yeah, it's a little looser.
Looser than I would love
yeah.
to be more loose, but yeah, so that's where that came from. And it is like a one of a kind, though. A monotype is not really very reproducible, I guess. The way that like a block print is, you can reproduce it to some extent over and over again, and each one is a little different, but not with monotype.
Right, because with a block print, you're kind of like carving a negative, only it's not a light sensitive process. You're carving it and inking it.
Yeah.
And then that can be done with an actual press or hand pressed. Am I right?
The monotype?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, usually people use a press. I have a little press at home, but I'm very, very low tech. And if I can't do it at home with like my kitchen tools, I just forget it. So I just do it myself at home, but a lot of strength, upper arm strength, some of you know about. Yeah.
Well, and so in your work, this series as well as pre-existing series, you utilize a lot of symbolism and mythology. Can we talk about some of the symbolism and storytelling that is involved in the creation of this body of work?
So this body of work, it started with my love for, my passion just for these beautiful Santa Fe Chollas, but also the other, in honor of this Santa Fe Cholla being one example of a species that is endangered. And so it's kind of in honor of all endangered species. And I've been loving this idea lately in the last few years of kind of honoring one subject, and like, or a plant or a body of plants, and or endangered species, and then kind of working from there. And so I had the inspiration to work with the Santa Fe Cholla, and then I always, in my work, I also just bring in a lot of symbolism and literal symbols and non-literal. And so everything always means something, like every piece that has something, it has some story behind it. And that's just something I've really enjoyed working with. I really consider my pieces like each one is really truly a prayer, and I don't mean that in a loose way. I really literally pray. When I'm working, when I'm coming up with like brainstorming and like zooming in on a show or on a painting, I have a whole practice I do where I'm really calling in something from somewhere else. Any of you creatives in the room, everyone has their own way of maybe doing this, or maybe not consciously, but like even just going for a hike, we can do that and like commune with the trees. We can talk to the trees. Oh, that's something. I'm doing that maybe more like with the creative collective that I feel like we all share, and musicians do that, dancers, and it's something that, so in this work I was calling in the Santa Fe Cholla and like all the species and the magpie that we see a lot. And then as soon as I started painting the magpies, they started showing up at my house. They really did. I have magpies sometimes, but they really, for the last 2 months, they were everywhere.
They're offering to model for you?
I guess so.
Yes.
They were modeling. Yeah. But yeah, so there's a lot of symbols. There's a lot of stories behind all of them. There's, the story particularly is about Santa Fe, because the Cholla is from northern New Mexico, this one that I'm talking about. So it's a story about Santa Fe and colonialism, and like the depth that colonialism has had, the impact it has had is incredibly deep, and it's not always what, like the impact it's had is not always obvious. And so I'm trying to kind of bring that more into the light of like, what does this actually mean to be living in a colonial society where we're all, I'm part of it too. I have a home, I have a piece of land that I bought, and I own the land, from a bank owns it, and so I'm part of it too, but like what are the real impacts of it? It's deeper than I think maybe not the people in this room realize, but to the general world. I'm just trying to bring that into the light a little bit more, and talk about that more specifically. And so what are the impacts of like when we go in and when we come into a city like Santa Fe, basically the story with this cholla is like it was here, but then when the city became more, what am I trying to say, like when contractors came in and started building and it became more built up and less farmland and more of a city.
Less room for cholla cactuses?
Less room for chollas. And I think a lot of people thought it was just another cholla. But it's different. So it's not the cholla, the tree cholla that everyone sees with the fuchsia blooms. It's a softer peachy color and it's smaller, or it's not necessarily smaller. It's more bushy and compact. And so you can see it if you want to know more places to see. You can look it up, but you can find the Cactus Rescue Project. People are, you can find out where to go see it from their Facebook page.
Yeah, you said there were some cactus teaching gardens.
Yeah,
Is
there's
that the
one
right
in
words?
El Dorado by the community center where you can go see, and in June they're in bloom. So if you don't see it in June, you may think it's another, it looks a lot like the other chollas. And there's more. There's one, I think, in the Bosque del Apache. And yeah, they're around. They're trying to bring it back, and so they have events where they give away the plants once a year. And I think was it in August or September?
I feel like they said November.
Or November?
But I could be wrong. You'd have to check with Joe,
Yeah,
right?
it's on there. There's information up here if you want to read more about it. And amazing people. There was a partner, two people who decided to save the cholla. One is Joe, who was here last week, and I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name. And then the other person is now the other person that was his partner passed away 2 or 3 years ago. And so now the cactus there is no longer the Santa Fe Cholla. Actually, it's called the OBIE, which is named after the man who passed away, and that was his nickname, I guess. I never met him, so wonderful person though.
So in this body of work, you're calling attention to that cactus and that it is endangered, but it's also a story of Santa Fe. But then there's also some other symbolism in the work. The ginkgo leaves, that's what they are, right? And those relate directly more to you and your history.
Yeah, my history. When I go home, my mom still lives in Tulsa, so when I go home, there's my favorite ginkgo tree, and they're around in parks and things. They're ornamental, but they're not native. But they're just very personal to me, so I brought them home and worked. I just like working with them, bringing a part of my original home to Santa Fe and kind of blending them and the two. And yeah, the pieces are about the cholla. They're about Santa Fe, and they're also about all of my work is really about my conversation with regeneration, and we're in this place where it's devastating. If we really want to talk about like what's happening, it's really depressing and devastating. And so I'm trying, especially for the youth, I'm trying to bring another voice in, and it just feels instinctively right to me also to bring in the voice of regeneration. And what do we do with the space that's like when there is a species that is gone or almost gone, what do we do with that space that's left, and what do we do with ourselves, and what conversations do we have? And I heard someone recently using the word regenerators, and I was like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be a regenerator. I hope to be, and to shed light on that, but also there's so much degeneration, and and some of it's irreversible. And so if I can find a way to kind of regenerate more life, more creativity, and be a place. Also, my website and my blog on my website, I give action items for people. And so if someone wants to go to my website, my hope is that they'll go there and maybe see a piece that they love, and then they read, and it inspires them to do something, to take action, to do something like, even if it's just donating to the Conservation for Plant, whatever that organization is called. That's also an action. Some of us don't really have time to do more than that, but I try and give people those resources, or I hope that they find me through that, and we can have a different conversation about that. But I just really want my work to be hardworking. I feel like it needs to. It's probably part of my upbringing, but like they need to serve a purpose beyond just being art on a gallery wall. I really, that's something I've struggled with a lot, and it helps me more to feel like I'm serving something greater. And my great-grandmother had a very big impression on me. She was a pioneer woman who lived through the Dust Bowl and housed 2 other families in her 800 square foot home during the Dust Bowl, and she had a huge impact on me, and like washing Ziploc bags, and she was made fun of by my aunts. They thought it was really cute that back then in Oklahoma in the 80s when I was growing up, like she's washed her Ziploc bags, and I think it must have gone. And now I'm in Santa Fe, and it's normal to wash our Ziploc bags. Thank you very much. That's why I'm here, I guess. But yeah, the hardworking part, I think, comes from that, like just needing to serve some greater purpose.
Well, and that said, your images certainly do that. However, they are also just beautiful images on their own. And we're here right now with the benefit of having Rebecca to talk about the work, to tell the story, go into a little more of the meanings that she has in mind. But if, say, we're in this room with all of these artworks and there's no one to talk to about the work, we're still experiencing some just really beautiful layered images. So my question here is about the role of the viewer. I think that's an interesting thing about art, is when you're making art, you're bringing your life experiences, your thoughts, your opinions, all of those things to the piece, but everybody experiences art in their own way. So we could take one of these pieces and isolate them in one room and have all of you stop in individually and look at the piece and write down what you're thinking or what you're feeling, and you're going to bring your own life experiences to that. And that's something I love about art. So I guess the question is just, I don't know, any thoughts you have on that of do you enjoy keeping them maybe open-ended enough that people can take it in their own direction, or?
Definitely. I mean, I used to not even like talking about my work at all and my own meaning that I put behind my work. And I felt like, well, the viewer needs to have their own story about it and their own interpretation. And that's still very much true. But as I became more intentional with my work and they became about more specific topics, I started talking about my paintings more and wanting to actually give people a little bit of context. But it is the viewer's role in this is very important, and it's a conversation, I hope, and maybe an unspoken conversation, because I'm not here most of the time with my pieces when someone's with them, but I hope it's a conversation that is open-ended, and also maybe it will bring, I love hearing other people's interpretations. That's what art is about, right? To just share and to have a conversation about something, and I love hearing what other people see in the work. That's something I hadn't intended, but that's there, and that's why I really work with that idea of the collective and the collective unconscious, the collective creative, I've kind of called it sometimes, like we're all in this soup of something that is not really my own. These paintings I created with my hand, but it's coming from somewhere else, just kind of coming in, and so I'm really interested in that, where we all come together and where that comes from, and I try to be in that space as much as possible when I'm creating, like what is that? Where is that coming from? And that's why when I say I pray, when I'm creating something, or when I'm thinking of my paintings and the compositions before I compose them, I do that a lot. I'm thinking about it and kind of like asking, what I really do ask for guidance, like what is needing to come forward, and or what is this trying to say? What do I need to say here? So.
Do you think sometimes maybe if you're showing me a piece and I see something in it that you didn't have in mind, that perhaps that actually is in there, but it was more of that collective unconscious
Yeah,
thing.
definitely.
You go, oh, actually, that's probably what
I didn't
that
know
is.
it, but there it is. Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes it takes another person from the outside to pull out those little details.
Definitely.
So one of the things I find particularly visually interesting about these pieces, among other things, is a lot of times artists will treat that white border as that just stays as the pure white border. It's sacred, but you incorporate, well, that's not the right word. A lot of the mark making that you create after the initial print is put down exists in the white border, and I was curious about that. I love it personally.
Oh yeah, it's just intuitive. I was like, of course you're going to go out beyond the border of the color into the white, because that's how life is, right?
You coloring outside of the lines.
Coloring outside of the lines, but like blurring the definition. But also, that's always what happens in life. You give a kid whatever, and they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to go over here. But it's also just intuitive. Like, why would you stay within? Why wouldn't you go onto the white? But I love the merging the two. I love the white space. I love how the white space can kind of make a work breathe. Or if the piece doesn't have white, how you can frame it with a white mat on it or something, give it that breathing room. And part of what I learned at CSF was framing and how to frame. And like, you always have a white border, or not always, depending on the work, what type of work, but definitely with framing, there's a white mat. And that white mat serves an important purpose, to give air, like breathing room, so you can, or a white wall. I guess a white wall serves a similar purpose. Is that right? Is that what you learned about framing in art school? Is that, I'm not right, but I think that's what I remember anyway.
Yeah, well, we studied with some similar people, so yes, yes.
Yeah.
We were definitely not encouraged to go for the color mats.
No, never. Sacrilege.
Yeah, no, my thought on framing is well, in some cases, frames become part of the piece. We had an exhibition recently of work by Esteban Duran, who's a tinsmith multimedia artist, and he was finding these old vintage frames that he was painting, and they became part of the composition itself. But unless you're doing something like that, you want the frame to be visually pleasing but not distracting. You don't want to show up and say, "Oh, I love your frame, Rebecca." That's
right. That's what it is.
Kind of an insult there.
Right. It's distracting too. Yeah.
Which, by the way, these are all beautifully framed and framed by the artist.
Thank you.
And so I love how they're floated, which when you're dealing with works on paper such as these that are a little bit more organic, I love seeing the edges and really the paper is part of the piece itself.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's typically how you display most of your work?
When they're paper, when I can, yeah. Some works don't. Yeah, you can't float all work, but yes, with paper, I love that treatment.
So the piece that's in the back with the circle of feathers, it has images of cholla that are really subtle in white, and I didn't notice them at first, but when I approached them, I just thought that's so beautiful. And
Thank you.
I don't know, do you have anything to say on that one? Is that
It's kind of like a little secret. Like, you have to get up close to notice it, but it's kind of telling you a tale of, if you look more closely, there's actually more to the story, of course, about the magpies, and that's a magpie in that drawing, and the cactus and their role in the ecosystem. And magpies kind of get a little bit of a bad rap sometimes, like they're in the blue jay family. They're a little bit they can be kind of obnoxious, but also they're supposed to be. In some cultures, they believe they're in between. They're supposed to be in between the spirit world and the planet world, the people here on the planet, including animals. And so they're supposed to be. Some people believe they have this quality of being a medium in between the two worlds, and they can translate things from above to us and vice versa. And then they're really, really smart, as you all probably, some of you probably know, hanging out with them. And watching them in my yard at the last 2 months of this, I was like, whoa, you are really smart. And some people just love them. It's like, I guess they're similar in the way that you can really work with them. And is it blue jays that I'm thinking of, that you can like put little trinkets out for them and then they'll like return them? Is it blue jays?
I was thinking it was ravens.
Oh, ravens. Ravens, yeah.
But maybe multiple birds.
There's some birds, yeah, they're smart in a similar way to ravens. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to upset a raven. They will never forget.
Yeah.
Is what I've heard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They remember.
Yeah. So, Rebecca, do you have a favorite piece in this show? Sorry if that's
that's a good
hard
question.
one.
I probably, one or two of them I was like, well, if they don't sell, it's going to hang in my house because I'm kind of like it.
Maybe you don't want it to?
Yeah, maybe. I want them to go somewhere, of course, but maybe the piece with the Cholla skeleton in the back right corner with the butterflies, the pollinators. It's just my vision with that was like, what happens the life that comes after death, and what happens in the space of the air inside the Cholla cactus becomes something else. Like maybe someone was saying, was it you? Does it become a home for? Maybe it becomes a home for wasps. I don't know. Maybe someone else knows. I don't know. But what happens in that space behind, or what also happens in the space where, say the Santa Fe Cholla did become extinct. What do we do with that space and the space that's left from them? And there's still a conversation happening, and they're still present, and there's still a presence there even when they're gone. And so what do we do with that, and how do we interact with that? That's the question I'm trying to ask, I guess.
Well, and that's one of the really visually interesting things about the Cholla is it's beautiful in life, but it's beautiful in death as well as is that form that it leaves behind.
Yeah.
We have, the artist that makes all the brooms and brushes you see out in the shop actually has some brushes that are made from Cholla spines. So they're just simply a beautiful, just natural form.
They are.
Yeah.
They're very sculptural.
So you're a mother of 3, which 2 of your daughters were at the opening, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they've grown up. I didn't get the chance to talk to them very much, but they just seem like lovely, amazing women that you have raised. And as I understand it, they're artists as well. And I know from when they were young children up till today, you bounce a lot of your images off of them in terms of they're your like little critique buddies.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm always interested in mentorship and being a mentor and being someone else's mentor, but it must have just been, I would say, how do you think being a mother has changed your work, having that? It kind of forced you to get your business going because you were staying at home, but just having that experience of being able to have your lovely daughters at home and maybe be able to just show them the piece that you just made at breakfast, that kind of thing.
It's probably shaped me in ways that I don't even know, right, that I can't describe, but I would definitely not be the person I am today without them, because they are truly my biggest teachers. It's brutal also. It's really difficult having children right now, and it's always been difficult, but really right now having 3 teenage daughters, it's all as beautiful and as hard as everyone says it is. So I think, but they're all artists and musicians. My husband's a musician, and of course they are. We all are. But if they're growing up in an environment where there's art and music, they're going to usually do that. And I do like bouncing ideas off of them. It's really helpful. We do little critiques on my work. I always ask them what they think, what they like, what's not working, what's working. It's helpful. They have so much more. They have such a good insight. Really, very helpful.
Well, and it's great to have that community as well.
Yeah, it is.
So do you think, well, if when they all grow up, even, go to college, that kind of thing, do you think you would be interested in teaching other kids art or working with other kids, or is that something you've ever thought about?
I haven't particularly been inclined to becoming an actual teacher or teaching, just mostly because it's committing my time. But yeah, I am open to taking on mentorship and mentees, I guess. If someone wanted to learn, I love sharing information. I love helping and sharing, and sometimes someone will call and be like, "Where did you get your cards made?" I love sharing and teaching people in that way. But yeah, we'll see what happens when my kids are gone. When I don't have little people at home to be like, "What do you think of this?" I'll probably need some other young eyes to help me.
Sorry to even bring that up.
Oh, no. No, it's not a problem. It's good. It's good. It's not. It's real.
Sounds like it's going to rain again.
Yes.
It definitely was pouring at the opening.
Yeah.
Rebecca's amazing husband was out here playing the banjo. He had to move a little bit so he didn't get soaked, but
It was fun.
it was definitely a lot of fun.
I hope you guys, well, if it's not raining, if you haven't gone out in the garden, I hope you can over here in the garden. It's just exquisite. There's a really beautiful plant in a rose of Sharon that Anne pointed out to me that they planted in back there recently. Is there one blooming right now?
I think
Today?
so. It's crazy.
It's gorgeous.
The flowers are like the size of plates.
Yeah.
They only last about 24 hours, but there's a smaller one out front there, but the one back there is just ridiculous. Yeah. The garden, for those who don't know, was planted in the 1850s and is maintained by master gardeners. So not just any garden there.
It's really special, and I think of that when this was all just when this was all farmland, right? Is that correct, or agricultural?
Yes.
And someone had it was probably very unusual for someone to have a flower garden.
It was,
Here.
yes. So in 2025, a flower garden doesn't seem particularly radical, but when everybody else around is growing food, the flower garden was a extra wild thing. And also the plants and flowers were flown in from all over the world for this garden. And a lot of those plants and flowers still come back and visit us every year. But the master gardeners have also added in a lot of drought-tolerant local plants as well to kind of balance all of that out.
Nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one last question before I turn it over to the audience. As you'd mentioned, to create the illustrations for the book, you were using Procreate, and for those who don't know, that's a fully digital art tool for painting and illustrating. As someone who's typically involved in such physical and tactile creation, how is that transition for you? Did you get into it, or?
Yeah, it's really funny because I'm really low tech. I don't like anything techy at all, and I was one of the last people to get an iPhone. So it's kind of funny. But the transition, once I learned it, it's really user-friendly, Procreate, and I didn't make all of the images only on Procreate. I used some of my own backgrounds, handmade, and then I combined them and scanned them in. But Procreate, you're working with stylus, a pen, pencil directly on the iPad, almost like it's. To me, it was a lot more intuitive than learning Photoshop. I never could didn't have the patience to figure out Photoshop, so I found it really intuitive. It's just learning the tools and learning how to use it was the only thing, and it was fairly. Once I learned how to do the book, make images for the book, and learn how to use it, it was very intuitive. Actually you can make. I really wanted the images to keep that handmade feel, and I worked really hard I was like, if I can't make this look handmade, then I'm not going to be able to do it on this program. I'm going to have to make it all handmade, and that would be crazy. It would have been like a 5-year in the making book, and it was not an option to do that because I was on a deadline. But yeah, thank goodness I guess in this case, thank goodness for technology and Procreate.
Yeah, but I would imagine as well, if you didn't if you were learning to create art for the first time just in Procreate and you didn't have decades worth of experience creating, drawing and painting and printmaking and actually working in those mediums, and you were just trying to replicate that digitally without that skill set preceding that, I would have a hard time believing that you would have been able to pull that off in that way, because they do look handmade.
It's a different. I had different information going in, and I work. It's actually almost identical, the same process, just different tools. I did the same layering. The only thing that's really I wasn't able to do was a printmaking. So I did some printmaking on my own and added that in, but the process is just layer and layer and layer and paint and collage.
I think it's a little bit like photography as well, and now that all photography's, well, not all photography is digital, but photography is predominantly a digital thing. But for those of us that learned in the darkroom and then were creating things digitally, having that background in, oh, okay, I'm using this tool to do this thing, but what is that tool actually replicating? So I feel like it's a similar kind of thing. I don't know. Always have to go back to photography.
Yeah, it's the best.
So we'll turn it over to the audience for some questions, but real quick, I'm just going to remind everybody that we do have copies of the book. We also have some of Rebecca's t-shirts in the shop under her Tree of Life Studio business, as well as some greeting cards, and then some prints actually from the book are in that print bin right there by the door, and of course all of the originals, and all proceeds benefit the artist as well as Historic Santa Fe Foundation. So who has the first question? We'll start with you with the sunglasses.
This is so beautiful, Rebecca. I'm like in tears over here.
Thanks, Kat.
Can you talk about like the symbols? Like I just really pick up like native textiles and paper. Can you kind of cover that a little bit in your book too, really beautifully?
Thanks. Thank you, Kat. Kat Kennick, if you guys don't know, my friend and artist, amazing, extraordinaire human. So the symbols in these pieces, there's some, like behind me, there's some turquoise, that's trade turquoise, like the original trading turquoise that was traded here. And let's see, what are some of the other symbols that I've, I'm trying to look around and see. So this is the symbol you see a lot, the Red Cross, is interpreted differently through different tribes, but it usually means the four directions or the four winds. And I like to bring that in a lot. Let's see, we've got on this piece, in the title it says, in the dark one right there, it says to make an altar. It's the shape is supposed to be an altar. That's a symbol. And what else? I use a lot of triangles for the obvious symbols of the triangle, the balance of the triangle and what that means in lots of cultures. And then the weavings, the tapestry and the threads are a lot about the literal weavings that existed in this land and like the unraveling of them. And so that's symbolic, like in the red piece in the back, there's an unraveling in drawing. The pencil part of the drawing is an unraveling of threads it's supposed to be from a weaving, a textile. And that's symbolic of like the unraveling of what has been unraveled. And then also one of them is this one, to be woven. Yeah, this piece behind me is about reweaving and reclaiming, regenerating, and reweaving. So I always kind of like to have both, like the balance of unweaving. Okay, if we're going to unweave, we're going to weave it back, and that's really important to me. It's really important, and I think having children, they have taught me a lot about that. I just heard my daughter last night saying, I feel so much pressure to fix everything. All these adults are always telling us it's our job to fix the climate change, and it's really real. They really do feel it. Their science teachers are telling them stories of like, they're constantly like feeding them like, here's what you need to do to like, in New Mexico, luckily they are. they're taught that here's how we can fix things. Here's how we can work for the better. So it's intense, but yeah. So yeah, great. Thank you for that question.
Origin of the cards, and I'm wondering when you're making a body of work, if you're thinking about reproducing the images in your, like for your note cards, or if how like scale plays for you in your smaller images and in bigger pieces.
I usually separate them. I make images. When I first started making cards, I just made the paintings, the originals, just for cards, and I was like, these are. This painting may sell someday, but the purpose was to be a card. And then some of those I will make and I will print into prints. But these I wouldn't ever make these into note cards, and so I begin with that intention, and they're just they have a different purpose, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, and I do. It is true that the note cards I create, there is a commercial aspect to them. I know, to be honest, there is a purpose to them of like being an image that someone would want for a card to give to someone rather than, so there's a different message also a lot of times. Good question. Thanks.
Great. Oh, you, yes.
Hi.
I'm really bad at like concise questions.
Oh, that's okay.
I so appreciate, I love looking at your art, and I love the conversation you guys had about like your intention versus the viewer. And I love hearing you talk about, in a very subtle way, colonialism and monoculture and how those are the same, essentially, and the impact on that. And I love hearing you talk about like the even if things die, there's a space left that can be filled with other things. And I do think that artists, it's not the children who are going to save us, it's the artists who are going to save us. And
Like that.
I just was at a little Zen meditation session, and the teacher was talking about sending out what you create while you're meditating. And I love what you said about that you call in when you're creating, and I'm wondering if you think about, as part of the conversation with the viewer, sending out an energetic or like, contributing to that greater consciousness. Like, do you consciously think about, I called this in and I'm sending this out to the viewer?
Yeah, definitely. That's actually some years, I think like in the last 5 or 6 years, I really became more consciously aware of what I wanted to do, like a different process with my work. It kind of came to me during COVID, actually. And that was part of it. Like, I'm praying for what I want and asking for guidance, asking for things, but I'm also in prayer and what I send out. Yeah, definitely. And that's part of the conversation that I'm having. I hope to have that conversation that goes out, and each piece being a prayer and that being extended out. Yeah, definitely. And that's each piece having its own story and meaning. That's part of it, is that hoping that continues as a prayer and not just something static.
Well, and with the previous body of work with the coyotes, I remember you were talking about having dreams of them, and there's that image of the coyotes falling from the sky, and that was all kind of part of that asking, but then you're also listening and just kind of pulling these things in, and I don't know, the coyotes falling from the sky always sticks with me, just that hearing you talk about that.
Yeah, I did. I was running. I was out on 9 Mile Road, and there's always coyotes out there, out by El Dorado, and I just love them. I hear them a lot at my house too. We all probably do, but somehow, that's a long, long story of like how the coyotes started falling, but a lot of them were falling up, actually.
Oh,
They're like
that's
falling
right.
and falling up, back up to the sky vault, which I was studying this story called the sky vault, about the sky vault, this Cherokee myth. So they started coming to me. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And now I've seen other artists like with falling animals a lot in the last. I'm like, oh, interesting. There's something in the collective. Like,
Anybody else? You.
Well, first a compliment. I think you capture flight really well.
oh, thank you.
The birds, the butterflies, the bees. I mean, mostly butterflies are represented like this.
Oh,
Birds
yeah.
are, it really sets the motion. So
Thank you.
my question is about the training at the college, which I'm very sad doesn't exist anymore. My experience of art schools, more so on the East Coast, it's all about technicals and skill, and not a lot of room for emotion or expressive or the story behind it. So I wondered, was your training, did that allow for that, or did that happen for you as you developed as an artist?
A little, yeah, it definitely was encouraged at CSF, but that school was very loosely based on art school, as far as what I've heard from other art schools. I don't know what maybe not the photography was different. I think the photography department was pretty rockin' amazing.
Yeah. Well, I was also going to say just the liberal arts aspect of it. I don't know about you, but I went in looking for art school, but found myself influenced by all of these other, other practices and things and history and I feel like I felt like it was technical, but also incorporating how you felt was not discouraged anyways.
Yeah, that's right. I got a lot less of the technical than I think I've heard at other schools, and a lot more of the exploration from the school. And really, my school was Santa Fe, and that sounds cliche, but it really was. Santa Fe is, and I learned so much more after school. That's where I taught myself everything else, pretty much, other than so much of what we all learn is not in school, of course, but they weren't heavy on the technical stuff at CSF.
Photo department for sure.
The photo department was.
But there's something
the
about
painting wasn't.
going into the black and white darkroom if you're not following technique.
Yeah, no, definitely the photography
Yeah.
and the printmaking was amazing.
Yeah. Plus David Scheinbaum.
David Scheinbaum,
Master.
plus just David Scheinbaum. Just being able to study with him.
Yeah, say no more.
Say no more.
I was just wondering about your great-great aunt. Is that going to be a 5-year process for that book, you think?
No, that book is going to be published in the fall of 26. So about a year from now. Hopefully it'll be finished when it's published.
And you're working with the same publisher, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same publisher.
So that's very cool.
Great. Levine Querido, they're wonderful. They publish they represent a lot of underrepresented people. And that's their whole mission. They're really small, cool press.
I think your work just inspires these rainstorms.
I guess so. Yeah, hey, it's raining. We need more rain.
Good thing we're doing this inside.
Thanks for being brave to go back out in the rain and coming out on possibly rainy day.
Yeah. Of course, we're open till 5, so no need to run out into the rain.
Yeah. Please stay and enjoy.
Any other questions from anybody?
I have a question. How do you approach naming your pieces? Does it just kind of come to you, or I notice all these are named like the same kind of convention, like to do something. How did that come to you?
Usually it's like when I'm done with the pieces, then I look at the piece and I'm like, it needs a title. Shoot. Dang it. And at first I always get kind of intimidated by it. You know how it's like intimidating when you're thinking about something? But then if I'm really able to be present and not distracted by a million other things, if I'm really able to just sit and usually I just think about like what the piece means to me, and there's a word, and then sometimes I have to go to the thesaurus and find a better word because it doesn't fit quite right. The thesaurus is a good friend of mine. I don't know. I find it really helpful when titling things. It's like titling a song, maybe, Char. It's hard. It's hard because you're like, is it the title that it needs to be? I don't know. Does it describe it the way it's supposed to? I don't know. Could it be better? Yes. It's hard. It's really hard.
Titles can definitely make or break pieces,
yes.
in my experience.
And they can be really inaccurate, and so there's a little bit of pressure. But it's not usually when I'm creating a piece that I come up with the title.
Yeah, you do a good job with your titles.
Oh, thank you.
I will add, in my opinion.
I get help from thesaurus. And my kids.
Anybody else? Anybody want to point out favorite pieces? Any favorite pieces we want to call attention to? That one there.
Thanks, Kat.
I like this one with the beads.
Thank you.
I just noticed, I saw it, I came here yesterday and I looked at it, but that's not what caught my attention, but then today, coming back to look at it a second time, that's like where my
Yeah,
eye went.
that's the trade beads. Cool. Thank you.
It's called To Collect.
To collect, yeah. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks everybody for being here. Rebecca will be.
Thank you.
And if anybody has any additional private questions, we're both here, so thanks for coming.
Thank you all for coming. It really means a lot. Happy to see you all.